The monitors flickered to life at 2:47 a.m., and Victoria Chen's world shattered in the most unexpected way possible. She hadn't slept properly in months, not since the accident, that had stolen her daughter's ability to walk, to run, to dance the way 5-year-old twins should. The state-of-the-art cameras she'd installed throughout their physical therapy center were supposed to give her peace of mind during the endless nights when she couldn't be there. As CEO of Chen Technologies, a billion-dollar software empire, Victoria had built her fortune on surveillance systems and security protocols. She trusted technology more than people. Technology didn't lie. It didn't pretend. It didn't hurt you the way people did. But on this particular sleepless night, hunched over her laptop in her Manhattan penthouse, Victoria discovered that sometimes the truth technology reveals isn't the one you're looking for, it's the one you desperately need. The camera in room 7 showed her daughters, Emma and Lily, asleep in their specialized beds, their small bodies still as porcelain dolls. The doctors had used words like extensive nerve damage and unlikely to regain function. Victoria had responded, the only way she knew how, by throwing money at the problem. The finest facility in New York, the best physical therapists money could hire, equipment that most hospitals couldn't afford. She'd given them everything except the one thing she didn't know how to give any more: hope. Movement on the screen caught her attention. A figure entered the room, and Victoria's hand instinctively moved to her phone, ready to call security. Then she recognized the distinctive blue uniform. It was just Miguel Santos, the night janitor. She'd seen him in passing, a quiet man in his 60s with weathered hands and kind eyes that seemed too gentle for someone life had clearly beaten down. Her head of security had vetted him. Clean record, references that praised his work ethic. Nothing remarkable. Invisible, really, the way service workers often are to people like Victoria. She watched as Miguel approached the beds and her fingers hovered over the phone. But he didn't touch the girls. Instead, he pulled a small chair between their beds and sat down heavily, as if his bones ached. For a long moment, he simply looked at them, his calloused hands folded in his lap. Then he did something that made Victoria lean closer to the screen, her heart suddenly beating faster. He began to talk to them. Victoria couldn't hear the words. She hadn't installed audio, thinking video would be sufficient. But she could see his lips moving, see the gentle animation in his face. He talked for several minutes, his hands gesturing occasionally, painting pictures in the air that her sleeping daughters couldn't see. Then he stood, moved to Emma's side, and carefully, so carefully, lifted her small leg. Victoria's breath caught. What was he doing? With movements that spoke of unexpected knowledge, Miguel began guiding Emma's leg through gentle rotations, ankle circles, knee bends. His touch was professional, purposeful. He worked methodically, supporting her limb as if it were made of glass, moving through what Victoria suddenly recognized as passive range of motion exercises, the kind the daytime physical therapists did, the kind that cost $300 an hour. After 15 minutes with Emma, he moved to Lily and repeated the entire process. When he finished, he didn't leave. Instead, he pulled out a worn book from his cleaning cart, a children's book. Victoria realized, squinting at the screen. He positioned himself where both girls could have seen him if they were awake, and he began to read. His whole face transformed as he gave voice to what must have been different characters, his hands creating shadow puppets in the dim nightlight glow. Victoria watched, transfixed, as this man she'd barely noticed performed a one-man show for 2 unconscious little girls. When he finally left, closing the door with the soft care of someone who understood that children needed their sleep, Victoria sat back in her chair, her mind reeling. She closed the laptop, told herself it was nothing, just a lonely old man being kind. But the next night, she found herself opening the camera feed again at 2:45 a.m. Miguel arrived at 2:50. The routine repeated, the exercises, the reading, the gentle conversation with children who couldn't hear him. This time he sang softly. She could tell by the rhythm of his shoulders, the expression on his face. A lullaby, maybe, or a folk song from whatever country had gifted him that subtle accent she'd never bothered to place. Night after night, Victoria watched. It became her ritual, This secret window into an act of kindness no one was supposed to see. Miguel never varied his routine. Physical therapy first, and she noticed he was good at it. Skilled even, his movements confident and correct. Then the reading or singing. Sometimes he'd bring small toys from the playroom and arrange them where the girls could see them when they woke. Small scenes that told stories. Stuffed animals having picnics. Toy cars on adventures. One night, 3 weeks into her surveillance, Victoria watched Miguel pull out his phone. The glow illuminated his face as he scrolled through something, and even through the grainy camera, she could see tears sliding down his weathered cheeks. He wiped them quickly, put the phone away, and returned to Lily's exercises with renewed purpose, as if working through his own pain. Victoria's carefully constructed walls began to crack. This man, this janitor, she'd barely acknowledged, was pouring more genuine care into her daughters during his unpaid time than she'd managed in months of writing checks. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She'd been so busy, trying to buy their recovery, that she'd forgotten how to simply be present for their struggle. The next morning, Victoria did something she hadn't done since the accident. She cleared her calendar and went to the facility during the day. She found Miguel in the hallway emptying a trash bin. Up close, she could see the deep lines around his eyes, the gray in his hair, the slight tremor in his hands that spoke of age and hard work. "Mr. Santos," she said, and watched him startle. People like her didn't usually address people like him directly. "Could we talk privately?" The fear that flashed across his face broke her heart. He thought he was in trouble. In the small office, she commandeered. Victoria pulled out her laptop and turned it to face him. "I installed cameras," she said quietly. "I've been watching." Miguel's face drained of color. "Mrs. Chen, I swear I would never hurt them. My daughter," his voice cracked. "I just wanted to help." "Your daughter?" Victoria prompted gently. The story spilled out, words tumbling over each other in his accented English. Rosa, his daughter. A car accident when she was 7. Similar injuries to Emma and Lily. Miguel had been working construction then, but he'd spent every spare moment at her therapy sessions, learning, helping, hoping. For 3 years, he'd worked double shifts to pay for her care, had learned every exercise, every technique. "She walked again," he said, pride and pain mixing in his voice. At 10 years old, she walked across her bedroom. I cried like a baby. "Where is she now?" Victoria asked, though something in his earlier tears had already told her the answer. Cancer, 2 years ago. Miguel's hands shook as he wiped his eyes. 28 years old. But those years we got after she walked again, Mrs. Chen, they were everything. She graduated college, fell in love, had a baby. My grandson is 3 now. He looked up at Victoria, his eyes red but direct. "When I see your girls, I see my Rosa. I know I have no right. I know I'm just the janitor, but I thought maybe if I did the exercises like I did for her, maybe I could help. I never meant to overstep." Victoria felt tears streaming down her own face, the first she'd allowed herself to cry since the accident. "How much do I pay you, Mr. Santos?" He named a figure that made her wince, barely above minimum wage. "And you've been giving my daughters skilled physical therapy, what, 15 nights a week? For free. They remind me of Rosa," he said simply. "How could I not?" Victoria made a decision in that moment. That had nothing to do with business, acumen, or return on investment, and everything to do with the crack of light that had just broken through her darkness. "I want to offer you a job. Not as a janitor, as Emma and Lily's primary physical therapist. Full salary, benefits, whatever it takes." Miguel's eyes widened. "But Mrs. Chen, I'm not certified. I only know what I learned for Rosa." "Then we'll get you certified. I'll pay for the courses, the exams, whatever you need." She leaned forward. "But more than that, Mr. Santos, I need you to teach me. Teach me how to be present for them the way you are. Teach me how to hope again. The transformation didn't happen overnight." Victoria learned to trust. Not just her surveillance systems, but her instincts about human character. She started spending nights at the facility, learning the exercises alongside Miguel, reading to her daughters, singing off-key lullabies. Miguel began his physical therapy certification courses, but Victoria didn't wait for the paperwork. He became part of their lives immediately, sharing not just his skills but his stories of Rosa, His unwavering faith that children were more resilient than adults gave them credit for. 3 months later, on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, Emma's toe moved. Just a twitch, barely perceptible, but Miguel saw it. So did Victoria. They looked at each other across Emma's bed, and Victoria saw her own fierce hope reflected in his eyes. 6 months after that, with Miguel's patient guidance and Victoria's newfound presence, both girls took their first supported steps. The facility erupted in cheers. Victoria held Emma's hand while Miguel supported Lily. And in that moment, surrounded by therapists and nurses and equipment that suddenly seemed less important than the human connections that filled the room, Victoria understood what her billions had never taught her. Kindness wasn't a transaction. It couldn't be bought or measured or captured on surveillance footage. It lived in the quiet hours when no one was watching, in the hands of a grieving father who saw his lost daughter, in two little girls and chose to help rather than turn away from the pain. It lived in the choice to show up, to be vulnerable, to hope when hope seemed foolish. Victoria eventually deleted the camera footage. She didn't need to watch anymore. But she kept Miguel's employment contract in her desk drawer, along with a photo from the day. Emma and Lily walked into their first day of kindergarten, late but triumphant. In the picture, Miguel stood between the girls, his arms around their shoulders, his smile bright enough to power the sun. On the back, Victoria had written, "To Miguel, who taught us all how to walk again, with eternal gratitude and love, because some gifts can't be repaid, only honored. And some people, the ones who show up in the dark hours with no expectation of recognition, are the real billionaires of the world, rich in the currency that actually matters. Humanity, hope, and the breathtaking courage to care."